What is up, everybody?
We lost Johnny.
Yeah, I got Johnny. Johnny's in.
What did I?
Here we go. Here we go.
Oh, there it is.
What the
It's
heck?
been like maybe a year, but we are back.
Yeah.
So many things that have brought us out of retirement for tonight. And for everybody who is out there, we apologize. We've been gone for way too long. A lot of things. We're missing someone tonight. We can talk a little bit about that. But yeah, we've got a crazy. It's been a crazy week, crazy year. Politics, life, and now rocking the Christian world is one of the biggest news stories to break in a long time. So first and foremost, let me go around and introduce everybody tonight. We've got hailing from Canada, all the way at the bottom of the screen. We got Mr. Johnny Rocket.
Oh, Canada.
Rocking above him. We got, and just so you guys know, Johnny is probably, he is, if you guys don't know who Johnny Rocket is, you don't live in Canada, because he's the guy responsible for removing Newsboys from Canadian radio. So, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, we got Doug Kirshner, formerly of Into Silence Records, No Compromise Records. And so he's joining us tonight. And then underneath me is Elijah. Elijah's been playing Christian music for a long time. And with Amber Lynn, he's been in Amber Lynn.
I was going to say, didn't he just get off the stage with Amber Lynn?
He did.
5 minutes ago.
Elijah, where are you located tonight? I mean, I'm going to look at the tour dates.
I think we're in San Diego tonight, huh?
That would be weird if you actually knew that.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
And I'm just the Christian music hack who knows a lot of things but doesn't have a musical bone to his body. So getting all that away, guys, how have you guys all been?
Life has been tough, but all good. All good.
And you're healthy. Well, hold on. With Doug, last time we left you, we were asking for prayer for some of your health issues, and you're still living. So
still living, but those issues are still going on.
Okay. If you need to take bathroom breaks every once in a while, just let us know.
It's old age, man.
It's old age.
Gonna be 50.
How about you, Johnny? How you been doing?
I'm very well, thank you so very much. Wednesday's a busy Uber night, so I'm excited to be here and missing out on all the Uber money.
That's how bad Christian radio has been to Johnny that he has to now go and do Uber. So,
yikes.
Elijah, how's life treating you with so many kids in the house?
That's
one of the reasons that you had to leave us last time with the brand new child.
Yeah,
things have calmed down. So how's things going for you?
Good. That youngest one, he's keeping us very busy, just getting into everything and touching everything, and he's definitely more of an explorer than the other two were. So, yeah, never dull moment.
Yeah, it's life. So,
yeah,
we've been sitting here, take on the world list. I haven't done a single show in forever. I get to watch my channel from afar. So shout out to all the shows that have been still running, everybody that's still been watching. I've been watching from afar, purposely just taking a complete Sabbath rest from all of that for a long time. So it has been a sabbatical for me. So it's time for me to do some shows. get my ugly face back up on the screen. So, guys, the elephant in the room. It has dropped. But before we do that, a year ago, 1 year ago, roughly, because if you guys aren't familiar, Doug is good friends with our good friend, Jeremiah Dirt, and he plays Audio Feed, which is a Christian music festival in Illinois. And last year, Doug actually heard this story being dropped then. And this is what's going to happen. Big story with
You're good now.
Yeah,
You cut off.
you're
for a
good
second.
now.
Yeah, so we heard this story about a year ago. Doug heard it, brought it to us, and said, I have firsthand account knowledge about what's going to happen with Michael Tait, and that's exactly what happened. So I don't know if, Doug, if you want to share a little bit about, without naming sources or names, but we've known this story for, if we want to be honest, we've known this story for 20 plus years.
Yeah, I mean, so this is what's so hard about everything is that it's taken this long to get out here. But I had firsthand knowledge from somebody that was a person that worked alongside the Newsboys, and knew the situation very well, and had a long discussion at Audio Feed, as well as when we got back to Cleveland about this whole situation. And the reason why I was going to bring it up to everybody is that there's so many different aspects to a Christian's walk that this has started to make sides now within the Christian music industry. Michael Tait, there's always been rumors that he's been gay. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I've never seen anything, but it's always been a rumor within the Christian music industry. I would say since even before DC Talk broke up.
Wow.
So it's not a shock. I just think that it was weird that when I had gotten the notice about this whole situation, they said it was going to come out in the New York Times, that the New York Times was writing a thing. And I only could think that why the New York Times didn't or hadn't put this out within 6 months like they had said is because they were waiting for somebody to actually probably respond to them, whether it be the Newsboys, management, Michael Tait, record companies, who knows. But it took almost a whole year for this to transpire. So
yeah, I mean, Doug ended up sharing that story with my whole family, and they're all like, "No, this can't be true."
Well, Chris, I believe you were like, "No way."
No, that's not true. That's not true. I mean, so
I'll believe it when I see it.
Johnny, let's go to you next.
Talk to me.
Here, let's go to Elijah and then come back to you because you had to make some decisions on this whole thing. Elijah, is a lifelong DC Talk fan and all of that kind of stuff. When you heard the news this week, how did that shake you up?
For me, it was very shocking. I obviously don't have the insider knowledge and information like Doug has, connections and stuff like that. I've been a huge DC Talk fan for as long as I can remember. I would say honestly, of the different genres I listen to, different artists all across the spectrum, I would probably put Michael Tait as one of my top maybe 3 favorite just voices as far as in music. I love his voice. I've always loved his voice, whether it's Newsboys or DC Talk. And so, I mean, he's always had I've had a very special place for him as far as an artist and all of that. So, and then on top of that, just, um, being that he's a Christian artist, I'm sure we'll get into some of this later, but I know that like nobody's perfect, right? No Christian's perfect. We all have baggage and issues and things that we're working on in our life. So I don't sit here and hold anybody, um, on a pedestal. I know that everybody's got their issues, but um, hearing some of the things that we heard, it was very shocking. I didn't expect to hear some of that. So just from me as kind of like the average person, average fan, it was pretty shocking. So
Yeah. So Johnny, it hit you this week, and you guys had to make a lot of decisions on that.
Yeah, so we weren't sure with regards to, I mean, being in Christian radio, what do you do when you're given news? I mean, we've had to deal with things like this before with artists and things that have come out as to, sexuality or whatever else. And so when it first came out, it's like, well, is this just a story? And then the article had come out saying that this is what was going on. And then the Newsboys had said, oh, this is what it was. And so the question was, do you get rid of all Newsboys stuff? Do you get rid of some of Newsboys stuff? Or do you not get rid of any of the Newsboys stuff? And that was kind of something that we were wrestling with. And I know that a lot of other stations in the States and that as well were wondering, what is that next step?
Yeah. And I think that will be the question of the show. If you guys didn't see it, it's did Michael Tait ruin the legacy of the Newsboys and DC Talk with what he's done? And we're going to get into that over the night. That's a question. Let's save that kind of for the end of the whole entire thing after we do that scope. The one thing that I wanted to say was many years ago, there was an artist. His name was Red Cloud. Red Cloud's a hip hop artist. He's on Syntax Records, and Red Cloud put out a track called Evangelicism. You can't find it. Go research it. You won't be able to find it. He put that out because he was removed from Syntax Records because he was actively engaged in pot smoking. So he was smoking pot, and Syntax knew this, and Syntax ultimately, gave him warnings or whatnot. I don't remember the full story of all the things, but when it was discovered and everything came out, Syntax had to do a full press release removing Red Cloud back then, when ironically those are fully legal things now to do in the state that he's in. Red Cloud put out this diss track because this was his walking away from the Christian music scene. And in that, he outs definitely tons of Christian hip hop, Syntax Records. He went pretty hard at everybody. But throughout that, he did attack the CCM world as well. He attacked a few different people, and there was multiple claims in there. But one of those very specific claims was that Michael Tait was fully gay, and he had firsthand knowledge on this. So, these rumors of, and I think a lot of people are looking at the allegations. We're looking at cocaine, we're looking at drug abuse, we're looking at SA, and as mentioned, it's on men. Gay activity, right? So, which that gets kind of thrown under as like, hey, that's kind of the least of the problems here. We've got, abuse, cocaine. We've got all these different things that are being stirred up. The industry, and how I'll preface this is, and we'll return to this multiple times and get your thoughts throughout the show. But this showcases industry over ministry, right? None of these guys are really in this for ministry. Ministry is a byproduct of the industry. It's a job. It's a career choice to these guys. And for many of these guys, the burnout factor, there's so many different things that occur. The suppression. If Michael Tait is suppressing things in his life because he thinks they're right and doesn't think that they're wrong, and these things are going to act out on these things. So we know there's so much to unpack and unfold, and get to that question: does this destroy the legacy? I'm wearing a shirt specifically of Larry Norman. If you guys know Larry Norman, Larry Norman was the Christian rock king, and it sort of subsided when Keith Green came around as one of the bigger names. Never really truly accepted in the churches, but if you know the story, and there's a documentary called Fallen Angel, and it goes through the narcissistic behavior of Larry Norman. It goes through all the things that he did to Daniel Amos, and then specifically his best friend Randy Stonehill. He was cheating with his wife, and all this is revealed in there. And so through that, in Larry Norman's life, he was able to be redeemed. A lot of those things happened. There was a period of time where he wasn't distributed. He wasn't looked at as the guy that sang I can all the songs that he sang, until you get to the mid 80s 90s. They're doing compilations on him, giving him his flowers much later, but he had that period.
It was because of DC Talk that
DC Talk. I mean, then again, you got Jeff Moore. All the guys definitely covered a lot of their music, covered the music throughout the late 80s early 90s. But there's a lot of that, but I say that in all due respect to the victims, to everything that's in here, is that redemption is still something that Michael Tait can get out of this. He can still be redeemed from everything that he's done. Do I think, and we'll go through what we think of him and how he lived, the hypocritical actions, the things that, standing in front of millions of people is a much bigger travesty than your next door neighbor who doesn't have a platform. There's a bigger level here. So we have to look at all these things and remember, Michael Tait's a man, humbly bowing before a gracious God, hopefully, and hopefully that his repentance, his confession is something of truth, and that he can be restored and redeemed. But we've got a lot to unfold and unpack. So I say all of that is, where do you guys want to head first with this? Because there's so much to unpack.
Do you want to read? Do you have the statements that Newsboys came out with and Tait came out with?
I mean, we can go as far back. Does anybody have that pulled up? The original Newsboys,
or do we not? Do people just go and look at it themselves and see?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I would say real quick about it is, go back to, if you guys are looking it up, if you want to look at this thing from, and maybe this is a good place to start, the members of DC the members of Newsboys, which is fronted by Adam, formerly of Stellar Cart. When they put out their original statement of why Tait left, it was like a shell shock, right? So it was a shell shock, and they had, in the way they wrote it was that there was they had no clue to this. There's no clue why Michael Tait would have left. Then, as we go, and that's in January. But by the time we get through to even the Canadian tour, if you look at the Canadian tour, you can go find an article, look up that Canadian tour. Before all this was leaked, they're talking about allegations with Michael Tait as the reason why they canceled that tour.
Yeah, so that's what kind of brought this all to light, though. Now, so and again, I don't like rumors until they're actual trumors. The rumor was that years ago, Tait was pulled over by the police for drinking and driving in Canada and got a ticket for it. So if you have that charge against you, you're already not allowed in Canada. So it was weird in the fact that the Newsboys were coming to Canada. And then all of a sudden, all these things started to unfold as to, oh, they're not coming. And then this whole thing blew up in January, February. So that was already an interesting, like, oh, I didn't know that this was an actual thing because the Newsboys hadn't been to Canada in a very long time.
And that was from the DC Talk days that he had that, or the Tait
No,
days.
I think it was when he was when the Newsboys first came up into Canada that it had happened.
Gotcha.
So, reality though, no matter what statement Newsboys puts out, no matter what statement Toby Mac, Kevin Max put out, the reality is this is not something that you can hide. I've been on tour. Unless you're taking separate tour buses, unless you're staying on a completely different level and you're hiding everything of your life, there's no way that these guys did not know what was going on with him.
I agree with that, Doug. Like I played in bands over the years. There's a camaraderie there, and there's just there's certain things you can probably hide a little bit from people, but there's no way that they didn't know.
I mean, that's like Guns N' Roses coming out and saying, "Oh, we didn't know Axl Rose was doing heroin." Come on, it's blatant. It's right in front of your face.
And the whole PR thing as well is like, I know that the band's going to come out and try to, save face and try to, put it in like a certain light, but the reality is that you're too close to him. There's, even if not all the guys knew, someone was close enough to him that knew for sure that there's some of this was going on,
Well, look at it this way though. If he's a part of the Newsboys, let's say that he doesn't separate himself January, February, and this now comes out in June and he's still the lead singer of the Newsboys. Newsboys are done. So
yeah, they had to do it.
Somebody had, like, come on. They had to do it for sure.
Yeah,
Somebody
they had to
knew
do
something, and they're like, they all sat down and he's like, okay, this is what's going on. We know this is going to come to light. Dude, you got to go.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to step away. I'm going to work on me. And because if you want to be more Newsboys-y stuff, you needed to do that. That's my own opinion. I don't know for sure, but I'm just saying, come on, that's the way to go.
But this isn't the first scandal that's ever rocked the Newsboys. I mean, how many lead singers have they gone through? How many, Jonathan James or what?
Yeah, James. Yeah.
Yeah, he was an alcoholic and I believe
drugs. Yeah, drugs as well.
Um,
but look at, I will say this, but look at John James's testimony and story now. I mean, he goes around teaching these things now. So they're he didn't, but he also didn't come back and return to the Newsboys and put himself up and in that status. So
no, I agree, but it's not the first time. Their original lead singer before John James. There's been so many rumors about the Newsboys over the years that I don't think it's going to knock them. They may lose a handful of people, but I don't think.
Well, let's look at this. Okay, so we look at that original press release of Michael Tait leaving. To then, remember that some of the victims went live on TikTok. So this is how these stories started to break. People were already talking to people. The grumblings were already starting to make its way to get some mostly independent journalists who put this out. Right? No mainstream thing put this out until much later. We have CCM posts. Today all that stuff came out, but it was originally independent journalists who put out the article. Well, when that launched, Newsboys had to put out another statement, and in their statement, they clearly said, if you go back and read it, it said, we knew about these allegations for many years, but we could never confirm the sources. So that alone tells us that you knew something. So when you go back to their original, why Michael Tait left, well, we don't know why, blah, 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 all of these different things and how they were playing dumb for PR purposes. But now it goes back to show that they weren't on, nobody was honest in this whole entire thing, sweeping things under the rug. Now it just looks bad on Michael Tait. I'm going to say there's so much blame around amongst all of them that somebody could have come forward and stopped this a long time ago.
I'm of the belief that, I had a very long and good conversation with a good friend today. And we did discuss this, and we talked about how if the rumors that have gone back as far as they have, and I know I said this in our text messages back and forth, at some point, somebody could have said something. Somebody could have done something. I mean, I read Michael's confession, and I just want to go up and hug him, right? I want to say, love you, man. This is bad, but it's not life-ending bad. However, if this was approached back in the 90s, if this was approached in the early 2000s, if this was approached even 2-3 years ago, this wouldn't have come out like it did and trash the name of God, trash Christian music industry, because that's ultimately what it did. I mean, you don't get really any bigger, as we've fought about in other past shows, than DC Talk. And he was one of the biggest artists of all time in Christian music. The reality, I don't know. I have grace for the guy. I've actually hung out with the guy. I would never have believed in my mind's eye that
Nice. Well done.
that he would have been like this or had done this. But we all know sin for a season is good.
Well, I will tell you this. He's going to have to learn the hard way.
Oh, geez, guys.
He's going to have to do a new thing.
Reading the article is supernatural. The thing is, but this brings me to then that question where, K-Love, which is the biggest Christian radio conglomerate in the United States, said, we are no longer playing the Newsboys. There are other stations who had said, we're going to do a half and a half, or we're going to no Newsboys, but we'll do DC Talk. What would, if you guys had that position of power to choose, what is it then that you would do? Whether they all knew and they covered it up, they didn't know. Where do you go?
Do you take off Amy Grant? Do you take off Michael W. Smith? Do you take off... there's a host of people, even in today's music, that, I mean, it was a known fact that during the Go West young man years of Michael W. Smith, he was a coke addict. Amy Grant cheated on her husband. There's a host of things to combat. I would say we just stop calling it Christian music and call it music. Everybody sins. Everybody has issues. Everybody has hidden skeletons in their closet. But the fact is that we cannot no longer call the stuff Christian music, because it's not really about God. It's about the almighty dollar. I say that knowing record executives and people that are in the industry. I mean, Johnny, come on. K-Love, making that decision, is it? I mean, how many times does DC Talk actually get played? Or how much does...
Probably not a lot. I mean, with them, not a lot. Newsboys definitely a lot.
You got to remember, K-Love has affiliate stations that play 90s and 2000s. And so they're heavily in rotation on those programs. And I will tell you, I listened to that one because we get it locally here. I don't know if you know that, Elijah. We get that locally.
What's that, K-Love?
we get K-Love 2000s, it's called, and it plays 90s and 2000s.
No, I didn't know that.
And it's
What station is that?
103.7. Yep, 103.7 here in Cleveland. And they play all that. So that's where they're removing it from. Of course, it's not getting played on the much on the the current station, with modern stuff, but it's there. I'll let Elijah answer that. I won't answer my question now, but I do want to touch on something, Doug, that you said. Let's go back and look at DC Talk. It's a well-known fact because it was written about that Kevin Max also was doing drugs and sleeping with groupies who were coming to his hotel room during the height of DC Talk. This has been something that he even wrote about in DC Talk.
Oh, and don't forget that he crashed his Porsche because he was high and drunk. I mean, there's and that's the thing. If this would have came out, if Michael Tait would have said back in the day, I'm struggling with homosexual tendencies, would that have been as bad as this? I don't think so. I think if it would have been approached from a different way, that, because, I said this to Robbie earlier, it's 2025. It's really hard to hide your sin anymore. I mean, there's so many different variables that now you've got video everywhere, you got social media everywhere, you've got people with cameras everywhere. What if somebody was just sitting outside his hotel room and would have captured something? I mean, you're talking that there's so many aspects of this that clearly, if it would have been handled years ago, it probably wouldn't have broke this deep.
Elijah,
I would. I'll responding to Johnny's question first. I think you have to pull Newsboys and DC Talk for a little bit, I think, and then you can probably slowly work it back into the rotation. But I think it's just kind of like a really hot topic right now, especially within, just the Christian community where, it's probably the best bet to just kind of temporarily pull it, not forever, obviously, like we talked about, Kevin Max and others, Amy Grant and, Michael W. Smith, there's been a host of bigger names out there that have, went through some things publicly, and they're back on the radio and, kind of back in the rotation again. So it'll happen, even if you pull Newsboys for a little bit, But
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Johnny, I don't think that DC Talk or Newsboys should be pulled. Maybe Newsboys with Michael Tait, because this is so fresh. But we don't know, honestly, how far back this goes. So, I mean, K-Love would have no radio station if they took everybody off that had major
right.
I think,
but you know what, Doug? Let me say this. So it is 2025, and we've lived through the Me Too movement. We lived through a lot of things going on here, and I think a radio station, especially one that's a Christian station, especially when we look at this biblically, the Bible says, that we're not to be stumbling blocks to others. So let's just say this. Here's a guy. Because the victims of Michael Tait, whether it's big or small or however you're going to view that, there's going to be a lot of people who listen to Christian radio, whether they're believers or whether they're searching, no matter what it is. Just the name Newsboys, because the stories in the news, can be a trigger or stumbling to those people. So, for example, and here's what I would say. if they said, hey, they're a Shine by the Newsboys. Well, all of us know Shine from the Newsboys is 1990s, Peter Fuller, Australian accent, has nothing to do with this case going on right now. To somebody else who just hears the name Newsboys, can be a stumbling block. Johnny could be receiving emails about this, and they're like, well, this is a different Newsboy. Well, it's the same thing. Now, DC Talk would be a little different, right? If they turn it on, they have no clue who DC Talk is, and then they hear this was Jesus Freak by DC Talk. Maybe that same aspect is not there for those people. I would almost side with Elijah. There definitely needs to be a break. There definitely needs to be, as a radio station, they're not just looking out for the fans of Newsboys. They're looking out for, does this potentially hurt other people by putting this on and causing, a stumbling block to unbelievers that go, look at you Christians. You guys are nothing but hypocrites. Here we're dealing with sexual abuse, because that's the big thing. Really, we've talked a lot about the drugs, but is this the big thing? And is there, and let me just say this, when there's smoke, there's fire. Are there more cases going to come out? So the smartest thing to go, hey, 5 years from now, nobody else ever speaks out. This was a couple incident cases that Michael Tait had some bad nights and he made some mistakes. Or is this going to be the 5 years we're going to go, 100 people have come forward. That's what. Let me pause 2 questions. A pause would be really is in order.
Let me pause. Let me ask 2 questions.
Number one,
if these were admissions made by women that he was sleeping with and doing drugs with and drinking with, would
you could be misgendering, bro? So be careful.
What?
You said you could be misgendering.
Oh, I'm not. What?
We don't know.
Yeah, we do.
Well, we don't know. Okay, go ahead.
And 2, you made me lose my thought, Chris.
Come on, Chris.
Do you figure number 2? Go.
Number 2. Do you think that it's really? I can't.
Do you think they're are you asking do you think those are valid? Is that what you're going with? Is it are they valid? According to Michael Tait's confession, he'd say aspects of the incidents he says aren't true, but the majority of the aspects are true.
Okay.
So he's kind of admitted.
But if we're looking at this from a point of view of investigator, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I hear the victims in this, they were of age. They surely aren't dumb people. And I'm not victim blaming, but at some point, somebody needs to take responsibility for their actions as well.
As somebody in your position, is this let me ask you this, because this is not one thing. If their cases are true, I'm not just asking hypothetically. Could these be considered criminal?
Well, unless he was doing a Bill Cosby, yes.
Which there are rumors that it was. And I don't care if you're guy or girl. It's sexual assault.
No, sexual assault. Yes.
So until all the details are out, should Johnny have made that choice? Should K-Love have made that choice to say, Johnny, yours is a little different than K-Love. You're not pulling DC Talk.
Right. Correct. At the moment, no.
But will you guys pull DC Talk, Toby Mac, if it comes out that this goes as far back as beginnings of DC Talk?
That's possible. I can't predict the future. Let's see what all unfolds. At the moment, what we know is that there was sexual assault and that he was involved in that, and that's where we are. I was reading some of the things that Katie was saying. And I've heard too that there's more articles, there's more things that are apparently set to come out. Will we find out that there's more victims? Will we find out that there was a lot of people who knew? I mean, I'm not, what do they say, baby with the bathwater? But I mean, like Chris said, when there's smoke, there's fire usually.
Right.
And so, let's start doing some of the things just in case. So if somebody says, well, you guys didn't, well, no, actually we did. And it's
a tough place to be in, Johnny.
100%. There's no right answer to this. Ever. And that's with a lot of these things. That's whether it's, I mean, granted, this is worse because like I said, sexual assault, but I mean, the things that, I mean, people were talking about under oath or, Amy Grant and divorce. Now there's a lot more artists now who have been divorced. And at what point do we say, okay, this sin is better than this one? You know what I mean? Like there's no right answer, unfortunately, to it.
I just think that like, if I don't know if that was Doug that said earlier, if it would have came out that he had some cocaine abuse or, alcoholic type of deal. I think it's approached a little bit differently, obviously, than versus kind of like the predatory aspect of it, right? And the sexual abuse aspect of it. I think that really kind of definitely takes it to another level. How do you guys feel if more information came out that this dated back to the DC Talk days, and maybe Toby Mac or Kevin Max knew about this? How would that distort your view of DC Talk?
100% it would. If you knew something was going on, regardless of what it is, and you did nothing about it, come on. And
that's what's concerning for me.
I think it's the whole reason DC Talk didn't exist, anyways.
What do you mean?
Why they broke up, anyways? I think by the time they got to that point, I mean, they all talked about how they had conflicts with one another. You watch the documentaries, you could see all these different things. They're at their height. And look, when you're young men who start off passing out cassette tapes at Liberty University, and all of a sudden you have a major label deal in the Christian world, at least, and then all of a sudden you X amount of years later you have that one major hit that leads you to a split major label deal with a Christian label. Funny they make that video about My Friend So Long. I mean, that song could easily be about them as well.
Well, there was rumors that it was.
Yeah, I mean, look, you had a lot of people at that time, Jars of Clay. When you're young like that, and you have now tons of money, you have tons of fame, and now and a lot of times these guys had respect of both worlds, the Christian world and the secular world. And so, I mean, look, DC Talk was on Arsenio. They were on all the late night shows. They had respect for many years. And so the girls come, the drugs come, the parties come, the invites to this come. If you aren't super grounded, you're gonna fall. I mean, it is that, I mean, Satan's really coming for you and so, you look at this where, you look back, were there things that he did during that time that led him right into all the rest of these things, looking at singing about God as an industry instead of a ministry? Like, hey, I'm here to get people closer to God through my songwriting and those things that they probably started off with, until eventually, hey, we're just cookie cutters making music with a producer telling us words to say that will sell on the radio. And ultimately, we're here to collect a paycheck and live a lavish life. I mean, you can't go. I'm going to say this. Hebrews 6. is the passage that talks specifically about continuing in sin, that grace will no longer abound. I'm going to say for you, for me, for all of us that are watching, if we are living in constant sin without conviction, without repentance in our lives, one, do we even know him? And two, grace has so far left us. We talk about how grace and mercy, all these things. If we are, those things are for when we get saved and when we fall. Obedience is how a believer is to walk. Obedience to the word of God, obedience to his ways. And when we strive so far away from that we can be doing this for 15 years, being a drug addict for 15 years, and then going in front of a group of people and singing about God. And like he says in his confessions, I'm one way, this day, I'm the next on Monday. And if we can do that as believers, that is a gut punch for all of us, for him, for us. If we are like that in our own lives, we should take that very seriously. Grace will no longer abound. And you can think whatever and believe whatever that means, whether you believe that's salvational, if you believe that way, or if you believe in the fact that God is not going to grant you, you're going to have major curses. Michael Tait is a living, walking person right now who has experienced being outed. I don't think he had any plans of coming forth and forward unless if he was known like if Doug knew a year ago, other people knew before Doug that something was happening. Clearly, then Michael Tait would have known. Clearly, band members would know. Clearly, managers, clearly other people would have known. And the fact that the fear of God isn't enough to get you to stop doing what you're doing. I'm glad he checked into rehab in January. Should have been checked into rehab X amount of years. Then again, if we're not walking in obedience to God, we're gonna take that first step by even just doing that for the first time. We're gonna be the first one to stumble and fall into sexual sin. I'm just telling everybody, walking in obedience to God, following God's ways, his instructions, his guidelines, his guardrails for our lives are the things that protect us from all of these things. They are a blessing. Michael Tait is walking in curses. The Newsboys right now are having to pick up the pieces while walking in curses because of disobedience. That's what this comes down to. This is for all of us.
Yeah, but if I knew a year ago, like you said, how dare they try to book another tour? How dare they try to pull the wool over the eyes? Let's just say Michael didn't check into rehab. Let's just say he didn't quit, or was he forced to quit? Whatever. How dare they? They still knew. Because I can guarantee you that reporters were trying to get their side as well as the victim side, especially New York Times and having to deal with Christianity. I mean, that's where I'm frustrated. And yeah, there's grace. God does forgive. That's a hard walk back, though. I don't think Michael Tait recovers musically. I think this is going to go very deep, because it's
well, let me say this. We receive grace after salvation when we're walking the faith out. We receive grace when we do what? We don't receive grace when we walk. No, yes, but repent from what? Sin, right? This is so basic theology. We have it so wrong. I see a lot of people, wearing shirts that waking up, they want to walk in God's grace. I'm going to tell you, we can debate this, but walking in God's grace we received the ultimate grace when we accepted the gift that he gave us through salvation. But when we walk in grace, it constantly tells us that we're walking in sin and having to repent. When we walk in obedience, we aren't walking in grace. We are walking in the blessings that the Lord has for us. We're walking in those things. And when we stumble and we fall, it's like when we have kids in our house and we know they're doing their best. And then they make a mistake. And we say, sorry, Johnny. Or that's okay, Johnny. I know you're doing your best. You made a mistake. You didn't clean up your room right. I know you were tired. You spouted off at your sister. Now you have grace because I know I've watched you 10 times over do the right thing. If you're doing cocaine every single day, your holy Father above you is not watching you going, yep, you're doing the right thing, Michael. You're doing the right thing. It's Hebrews says that if we continue to sin, grace will no longer abound, because it comes back to obedience. That we and churches don't teach this. Nobody teaches obedience to God's word. They don't. They simply don't. They preach almost all the other things, the things that make us feel good. And at the end of the day, all he asks us to do is obey him. If you love me, we will do what? We will keep his commandments. These are the words of Christ. He tells us, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. No, if you love me, you will walk in my grace every day. No. When we fall, we will have grace because we are walking in obedience, and we will fall because that is how we are designed. Things will happen, but when we're living continually 10, 15, 20, 30 years, when does it come to the point? I mean, my goodness, is this Michael Tait's career of 40 years in the Christian music industry that he's been involved in all these things? Time will only tell that question, but this isn't a Michael Tait thing. This is Doug Kirshner. This is Elijah. You've been a believer for this long of your life, and you've been serious with God. Are you living a double life? This is a holding up a mirror thing. This is a good reflection for all of us to say we all fall short, but it comes back to are we walking obedience? Are we striving to walk in obedience to his ways? And the answer that we get from churches is no, that's not for you. This is for you, or these parts are for you. It becomes a convoluted theological mess. And to be honest, most churches are responsible for the actions that most of us present to the world as followers of Christ, which is just nothing but a hypocritical mess that nobody wants to have anything to do with. And there's whole Facebook groups that have been burned by everybody in the church because they're nothing but hypocritical fools claiming to have Christ, and people can see through it. So that's why I say we should pause before we know everything. So Elijah, you're next.
Yeah, I'm
following that. I don't know where are we taking it from here. This was kind of sitting on my mind for a minute. Doug said this earlier, and I'm probably going to sound like a bitter old man about this, but you mentioned, do we call it Christian music anymore? Right? I have been and am frustrated with I think the Christian music industry as a whole. I think that you see a lot of quote unquote Christian artists that come out and are trying to have like one foot in the secular realm, mainstream, and still keep a foot in the Christian industry. And they'll say, well, I'm a Christian, but I'm not a Christian artist. I sing about Christian things, Lecrae, does he really consider himself a Christian artist? He just consider himself a hip hop artist, right? But he's accepted by the Christian music industry. I don't know. What do you think? What do you guys think about that? I know that's a way bigger topic, but Why did you say that, Doug? Like, what was your?
Well, all the years that I've been involved in the quote Christian music industry, like I legitly started to do ministry to get people saved. But when you don't really know the tenets of faith of the actual artists that you're bringing in, that's pretty hard. So you got to leave it up to God to be, the judge of all of that. However, having gone to Cornerstone Festival, having smoked really my first joint with Gene Eugene and Derry Doherty, two big Christian people in the music industry, it was eye-opening. The reality is that I don't think it is. I mean, we're supposed to live out loud our walk, our faith, our belief in God, our beliefs in God. Do I call myself a Christian specialized docket coordinator for the courts? No. I just call myself Doug. And and I think I've shared this before, and I've had a handful of kids ask me to pray for them. Mm-hmm. And one, I could get fired for that, but I still do. And I asked the one kid, I go, how do you know I'm a praying man? And he said, because I see it in you. The same with music. You write what you believe, you write what you feel. It's an expression of who you are inward. And I firmly believe that we wouldn't have these issues if we just cut the tie with the Christian moniker. But the problem is that a lot of these artists and bands would never have made it in the mainstream market, and that's why we have.
Well, they've even admitted that.
Was that?
They admitted that. They've said that they went the Christian route because it was the easier route.
But you have Katy Perry, who did the opposite. She couldn't make it in the Christian industry and then went secular. So what's the point? Is it actual worship? Is it actual about salvation and ministry? Or is it to make money?
Listen, I will say this, regardless of what you guys, whether it's Christian music or not, when I have people calling, crying, saying that they've heard a song from insert whatever band, and they felt as though God has used that music, that song, that moment to touch them, people who have given their life because of a worship song or a rock song, there's something true to that. And I won't take anything away from that. So you could call it Christian music, you can call it Christians playing music, but if God is able to use that, then I don't care what you call it. You can call it music for all I care.
Yeah.
And same thing with Christian radio. I mean, we are Christians doing radio. It's Christian. If people say, "Oh, do you work for a radio station? Which one?" "Oh, I work for this." "Oh, is that the Christian one?" I mean, even if we called ourselves something that wasn't that, that's just what people would associate us because of the music that is played, music that speaks about God, whether it's, what did somebody say, clean secular music or not. So, I mean, you can't, there's no way that regardless of whether Lecrae calls himself a Christian or a Christian rapper or a Christian who raps, if there's somebody who their lives are changed because of that, I'm not taking that away from them.
You don't have to, you can play a Phil Wickham song for me, right? You don't have to tell me he's a Christian artist. I can listen to the music and know exactly who he is, what he's singing about, right? I mean, that's pretty, so do we really need to specifically label it? I feel like sometimes, especially the secular world, will take that Christian title, Christian music, to use it against us in a situation like this with Michael Tait, right? As far as the hypocrisy and all of that, and then it's almost like weaponized, right? And people will find any reason to attack Christianity anyways, but when you have so many of the artists that are 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and and then you've got attacks from outside that are trying to uh, you know find fault with all these different artists and stuff like that. I just feel like sometimes the title itself can be more damaging, I guess. And it's like you said, what they're singing about or the impact they have on a person's life. That's more important, right, than the actual title, right, Johnny? So.
Well, Doug said he's Doug, but people still know that they're not going up to not Doug and being like, "Hey, can you pray for me?" Because they'd probably get punched in the ear. But they're like, "Oh, Doug," even if you don't call yourself a Christian in front, people know.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, let's
It's top
pause
of
for
the
a
hour.
second. We are at the top of the hour, but today
Yeah, we are.
we're going to do something much better than we've ever done before.
Oh,
So, and this actually just carries on with the conversation. Today we actually have a game, guys. We're going to do a game. We're going to have a winner,
Oh boy.
and so this is an easy game.
no, it's not.
Okay, so we're gonna see how well you guys know the alphabet, and we're gonna go around on one thing that we just said, right? Why should there be Christian bands? Well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through the alphabet, and we're gonna pass off. So I'll start with the A, B. We're going to Elijah next. Johnny's gonna wrap us up. Then we're gonna go right back around. If you miss up on an answer, you are out of the game. And we're going to go until one person is standing. Who has questions? Today we're going to go simple. We're going to go all genres because we could go much more specific genre. Unless if you guys want to go specific, we're going to do that. This is our time for everybody to unwind for a second because then we're going to get into some heavy stuff. So
I'm lost. What are we doing?
So we are going to go around. Doug, you're the only one that your dyslexia is ruining this. So we're going to start.
ADHD.
Yeah, so I'll go with A. You got B. Elijah's got C. Johnny's got D. I got E. You've got F. Oh, you got it now? Okay. And we're going to go away until, and if I start holding up my hands and I'm going to give you a 5-second countdown and you can't think of anything, you are out of the game. And Johnny, you could do that for me when it's my turn, okay?
So A, B, C, I'm D. Okay.
Yeah, you're D to start this stuff, and then we're going to go right back around. So then you got to remember what letter comes next. So don't mess this up. So is there a specific do you guys want a genre? Or do you guys
the whole thing?
You got the whole
Open
thing?
it wide open. I'm
Okay,
good.
I'll go. All right, so we'll CCM, metal, rock, hip hop. All right, here we go. Let's start this off. Ready? Age of Faith.
Talking about Newsboys to this.
Go, Doug.
Wait. Oh, B.
Yeah.
Chris Tomlin.
DC Talk.
Esterlin.
Focused.
Does Gavi still count?
Wow. Okay. Not that we're going to controversy. Hocus Pick. Does that work?
Iona.
Oh, you could have said the Imperials, Chris.
Yeah, I know. Go.
Jesus Freaks.
Oh man.
This is wild.
Right,
I'm missing something.
Yeah, it was K. All right, skipping K. Going right to you, Johnny.
Oh, Lecrae.
Marzell.
Oh my God. Nonus and Victim.
OC Supertones.
Pigeon John.
This is hilarious.
Oh, I have one, but I don't know if I can't remember if they were Christian or not.
Okay, Doug's out.
Oh wait, it was me. I thought it was Elijah.
Yeah, it was you. It was
Quest for
you.
Stones.
I'm out. I
All
should have
right.
said Cutlass though for K.
Yes, you could have.
Ugh.
Johnny?
Yeah. Red.
Stephen Kerr-Chapman.
You serious?
Toby.
Euthanda.
What are we on?
You got to figure that out.
UV. Violent Burning.
Mm.
The W's.
Okay, so extol wouldn't work because it's with an E. Isn't there like XXI? You might have to Google that one.
There is one. There is a band. I believe they're on Rottweiler Records.
Give it to him. Yancey.
Do what?
Yancey. We'll give it to you.
Zoe girl.
Okay, well, all right. Oh man, all right. Yeah, we ended in a tie. That was
Nice.
great.
I like it. That'll work.
Okay. Hey.
Also brought to you by Born Again Sam.
It was yes. So tonight, I'm showcasing some stuff. Born Again Sound. Johnny, tell them where they can go to find some stuff.
If you want the best in Christian music, apparently after tonight. BornAgainSound.com is the place to go to pick up, CDs, DVDs, cassettes, vinyl, LPs, 45s, you name it. Born Again Sound has it. BornAgainSound.com.
Right. So tonight we're showcasing all the things you can't get on radio any longer. So any of these you cannot find. So guys, check these out. This is amazing. Everything that will be canceled by the Christian, out there. So, and hopefully everybody needs a little bit of in your life. There we go. So that was Jesus in your life.
I think there are a hardcore.
Which this has DC Talk on it too, so they're canceled. This is canceled as well. So, so there you have it. So go to bornagainsound.com where you can find a lot of fun things to relive your past.
It's good.
This so
now that your past is blowing up in your face from your childhood, yes, it's great.
Yes, and you can find things that aren't canceled but are out of print. So great stuff, guys. So, all right, let's pick up right where we were left off. I think let's start. Let's go to. We're going to start with what the title of the show is. Did what Michael Tait do or accused of doing in some ways, even if there's more, even if there's less, has that or will that hurt the legacy of Newsboys moving forward, the past, and DC Talk and everything that they've done?
I think it all depends. I think it all depends on what comes out next. What who knew what, when they knew it, and because that stuff's all gonna come out. If this goes, let's say there are criminal charges, people are going to be deposed. There's going to be so much involved that, we just saw Harvey Weinstein get sentenced for another 85,000 years, I believe today. However, I don't think that the legacies are destroyed because there's too many people that have gotten saved and have, felt that music. I don't know. I don't think that the legacy's ruined. I think that the image of that legacy possibly, but the music legacy is not ruined.
I'm gonna
Do you
say
guys now will you guys go and not listen to Newsboys or DC Talk personally now for a while?
I stopped listening to DC Talk before Supernatural, but and same with the Newsboys. I haven't listened to a Newsboys album since "Take Me to Your Leader."
yeah. I'm gonna say this. Their legacy right now, yes. Their legacy in 5-10 years, maybe not. Because I think a lot of times we're so short-sighted on a lot of things that people will forget about some of the things that had happened. I even think about athletes who have done wrong, and yet people are still cheering for them or still wanting them on their team, or people buying their jerseys. I think that as of right now, because it's top of mind, yes. But I think unless you continually bring it up, hey, it's the one from the Newsboys. Remember the guy who did this? I think a lot of people would forget about it, unfortunately.
I agree with you, Johnny. I think that the initial impact of it, probably hurt them, but we have short-term memories, and we'll just, as time goes on, I think that some of that'll just be forgotten. But as Doug said as well, if way more stuff comes out, it could be much more impactful long term for their legacy. If I'm the Newsboys too, I feel like you have to hold off on releasing any new music and maybe touring for a bit too. I think that putting something out too soon, any new music or anything like that, is going to be really frowned upon. I think they're going to have to hold off for a while, my opinion.
But you don't get a new lead singer to not assume that you're going to continue on as the Newsboys.
Right, but I mean, how well are people going to accept the Newsboys, even with the new lead singer, with all this coming out and the speculation that they knew and they were hiding things, and covering for him, potentially, and all of that. That almost bothers me a little bit more to a certain degree, just because of the hypocrisy that they're, trying to, protect their own image, and hey, keep listening to our music, and we didn't know anything that was going on, right?
It is two different bands. I mean, or it's John James to Peter Fuller, not so much so different, because Peter was always a member of the original Newsboys. Just wasn't the lead, right? Throughout the 90s, Newsboys were very distinct, right? They were much they went from a pop rock band to a worship band. Had lots of hits. But I will say this. As a Newsboys, as they would call themselves, a ministry, because I actually have a signed paper that they sent, super gracious. They sent when Peter was in the band. When we started our youth group, I used to reach out to all the artists and record labels, asking them for posters, anything that we could display on the walls, giveaway CDs, cassettes. So much was given. We used to give out stuff, and I used to throw them out to the kids in the crowd. And I remember one time chucking a kid with a cassette, actually, that was given by Gurr Records, by a band that Doug is familiar with in The Blamed, and hit a kid in the head, and his head was bleeding from it. So I used to give that stuff out like crazy. But the Newsboys sent me a full-blown huge poster with a signed paper of all the band members, Phil, Joel, all those guys, Jody, all the guys that were in the group. And they signed this as the Newsboys Ministry. And I should have pulled it today, but I remember very specifically. It is the Newsboys Ministry. And as big as they were, playing all the Christian festivals and doing all those things, you could say anything about the Newsboys with Tait. The success with Michael Tait, specifically with God's Not Dead, which was which was the lead single for all the movies, which they were in the movie, which made millions, and how big that song became, not only financially but streaming. It was massive. Johnny knows how massive of a hit that was. I don't think old Newsboys cannot touch what that song did radio wise, anything. That one song transcends so much, theatrically, with the movie, to all these different things. So those things are a big stain. I mean, how does somebody go back and watch an apologetic movie, and hear God's Not Dead and see Michael Tait in that movie after they watch how, they break this whole thing down apologetically in the first movie to the second movie, all these different things. To be honest, it just looks like a joke it will look more like a joke to the world, especially if these things in their world, especially in liberal culture, aren't technically canceled, right? So how this affects the world, it does do damage to the legacy of especially the Tait years, which by name recognition hurts everything that was done beforehand. I'm not saying, all those songs are associated with him. He didn't write them. He didn't perform. He did. Yes, he did perform these songs. Tait would sing old Newsboys all the time, but he's not associated with them, but they definitely hurt it. Has it hurt? Will it hurt the legacy long run? Only time will tell. As a lot of people said that. Furler. Yes, that's my. So yeah, I can't speak. That was me just saying that. So I'm sorry. I know what his name is. I can spell it. I just can't say it. So yes. I think it's going to affect it. I think history is going to really affect, or time will tell, is it going to affect DC Talk? And is it going to affect the bigger thing? Is it going to affect Christian music moving forward? Does it affect all these things? Are, if they knew, did other bands knew? I mean, Doug's at other shows, as he says, doing drugs with one of the most prominent producers in all of Christian music history. He clearly would, if he's doing it with Doug, and Doug was not this big shot back then, he's doing it with others, right? And so what's the trickle down effect on all of these things? So
this is going to be a big cascade event, though. This is going to be, because it's not just Michael Tait. You've got all the former guys that were in Newsboys. You have all the former writers. You have producers. You have the guys in DC Talk and the people that were involved in their camp. You have Phil Joel, who did his solo stuff. You've got a ton of other people that are involved, that now music's being pulled from radio stations. One of the biggest conglomerates in Christian music right now, which is K-Love. Yeah. That hurts the pocketbook. That you're talking about taking money out of people's pockets that they probably survive off of. They get royalties. This is bigger than Amy Grant. I think this is even bigger than Ray Boltz. Because again, we are at a bigger precipice in life with social media and the attention that Christians have right now in the mainstream world. Yeah, they just, the whole God's Not Dead is a mockery now. And I think that you're not going to see the effects for a while, but it's gonna cascade.
It's not. I don't even know where to rank it. The Ravi Zacharias stuff. That hurts. I mean, look, we can slice and dice it. We can name call and say all these things. We're all humans. Everybody has vices. Everybody's walking these ways. In so many different areas. There's things that we would all be embarrassed of if they were public, or past things that we think or say, or the deepest things that could come out of us in the worst moments, would embarrass us and cancel us to the moral compass of the world, which has none. But as believers, we are called to represent him in a way that brings people to him. And when we have these people who we put on pedestals, pastors, and all of these people like Ravi Zacharias, the greatest Christian apologist he's dubbed, on TV, all these different things, run huge ministries, millions of dollars, doing the things he's doing, it makes Christianity look like a fool, but all it's doing is making Christ a mockery. That's all this really comes down to at the end of the day. We fall. And so that's why it's so important as people who have platforms, even one as small as ours. Johnny has the biggest platform here. He's on radio every day. Our platform is small. We haven't even been on in a year. But we still, to the person in the chat room, for us to be on camera saying some of these things, we actually have a bigger platform right now because we put ourselves out here. And if we go back and next week, Doug's beating his wife and he's an alcoholic, he looks like a fool. Then again, we know that Katie would not even allow that to happen because she'd destroy you in a second. So we know that. But
I hope my wife is watching right now.
He's asleep. But that's
she just walked in.
That's my point. That's the whole point. Is like we all, no matter what we do in this life, we have a duty. And if you're going to put yourselves up in front of 1 million people, let me say this very clear. Michael Tait, in all of his actions, we can go a million directions with it, but in front of millions of people, movies, TV appearances, concerts, repeatedly over and over for 40 years. I mean, DC Talk has been basically started 40 years ago, somewhere in that ballpark, 88, whatever it was when the first tape came out, 87, whatever it was. So, I mean, we're talking a long time. We're talking to lots of people and children. Most of us were kids listening to this music. And what does the scripture say about, if you're going to be an influence in this world and you're going to lead people down this is devastating. I mean, Elijah knows, he, not to be super public about it, and he can maybe speak on it, but he's been under a pastor that when he left, that pastor had infidelity. And it rocks not only the church, it hurts the families of the attendees and the children. We look up to these things, and it's better I'm going to say, it's not just pedophilia. There's so much that deals with these things. It's if you're in these positions and your audience is children and you're living these double lives and these double standards, if you don't have enough fear of God, you better have enough fear pretty soon if you're going to put yourself out there to do these things and be influencing hundreds of thousands of children to ultimately lead them away from Christ. And that happens. We see that the hypocrisy of the church is the number one reason kids leave the faith. It is because churches are nothing but hypocritical. Christian pastors musicians, this is the number one reason. I don't know if you want to speak on that, Elijah, but you dealt with that after the fact, but it's devastating.
Yeah, it is. I remember when we found out about that, it was pretty earth shattering because it was a pastor that I had attended the church and sat under close to, our family and all of that for a very long time. So I, at the time, actually was going through, a pretty rebellious phase in my life. Had like the big gauges in my ears, piercings and all that kind of stuff. Still was obviously going to church, but, that was me kind of acting out. And that pastor would always be in the back greeting everybody after they left, shaking everybody's hand, thanks for coming, that kind of thing. And he always just gave me the dirtiest look for how my appearance and all of that. And I felt a lot of shame for it. And then, obviously time had gone by, and when all of that came out about, the infidelity, one thing that I learned is, like, I'm not going to ever put somebody like that on a pedestal again and care so much about what they think. It matters what God thinks about me, right? And what, and God knows my heart and who I am as a person. And maybe, someone else is, going to judge my appearance, because of this or that. But in that situation, they had plenty of sin going on in their life that was, like, how dare you, right? So, but there's something I was trying to think of that I was going to tie that in with the whole Michael Tait thing. I can't recall it, but I think that somebody said that earlier. I would have much rather liked it if he would have came out at a certain point and had like kind of a repentant spirit and said, I'm dealing with this. I'm having some drug issues. I'm having some, homosexual tendencies or alcohol issues or whatever the case may be. And I'm going to step away from the band. I'm going to, do some things here, and repent and clean things up in my life. And I would have really had a totally different attitude about all of this if that would have been the approach versus, going back to what we said earlier, it's, not a ministry, it's a business, right? And, whether he was continuing to live this double life to hide that, obviously for his own personal gain, for the gain of, the band, for producers, whoever else was involved and whoever may have known, help, kind of hide those things. That whole aspect there is just, so off-putting because of just the decision making of why you didn't try to come out and, where was your heart at that you couldn't have just been repentant, right? And then, all these other people as well that were potentially involved in it and haven't, didn't try to, do anything to correct the behavior. So that like we said before, the hypocrisy of it is some of the worst things as far as, how as Christians and, Christians that do have a big platform like that, and represent Christ in, on a major scale, it's so impactful, for people that are looking, from the outside in.
But the other thing is, though, and I mean, the problem that I have is that, let's say that he came out and said, hey, I got a drug issue and whatever else. Like, I know of people who've said, hey, I'm struggling right now with pornography and I don't know what to do. And a lot of people treat those individuals like lepers.
Hmm.
And they don't support, and they feel ostracized, and they feel like if they came out and said that all Christians would turn their back on them. Well, I don't want to be associated with so-and-so because they're known for porn or cocaine or whatever.
Right.
I could see not wanting to come out then and say it because of the being ostracized by others and not getting the support, because I think that a lot of Christians say that they have your back until you get into a situation and then they don't.
Right.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. Look at how long Michael Tait's been in the industry. He was a young kid when DC Talk first came on the scene, and they blew up. And when you have managers and record executives and people controlling your life, I've seen this in other artists. They don't know how to do anything. I mean, they have people doing everything for them. So how does one come out and say, "Hi, this is my sin. I need help,"
No.
without feeling and possibly getting ostracized? Because we all know that if he would have done that, more than likely, you would have Christians attacking him. But I don't foresee it being as far worse as this whole situation. But I just don't. I mean, DC Talk was my first in to the industry. They gave me a chance when no one else would. And it pains me to know that Kevin Max went through what he went through, and still to this day doesn't believe in God, doesn't believe he's totally gone cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But there was always that bright light with Michael Tait. Even though there was things hidden, he was always I really feel he was a genuine guy. That I just, but I'm reading comments on our thread right here, and it has not been said that he has done anything to young kids. So we need to squash that, because unless something actually does come out, that is far more dangerous and far worse if that has happened. But there's been no claims made to that yet.
Right.
I read his confession, and I've seen other people come out and make confessions. I truly believe that he wrote this from the heart. I don't think that this was a stage thing that somebody else wrote for him. I think that we just need to see where the chips fall at the end of the day. This is going to be bigger than just several people, if it's been going on for as many decades as we think it has. But, I just, like I said, certain artists get to a certain stature and they don't know how to function as a real human being. They're so far out. I mean, I've always talked about Stryper, but, having brought those guys in, worked with those guys, when you're asking for day passes to gyms and oxygen tanks and certain bottles of water at certain temperatures, you don't live in a real world. You don't have a real world view of what this actually is anymore. And I feel that that's possibly where Michael Tait went. Same with even with Toby Mac. But I think we need to be careful with statements that are being made. I just wanted to put that out there.
And this is still fresh and early, and we don't know everything. And as people had said, there's a lot more that's supposedly going to come out, and we'll see what all happens. But I mean, as of what we know and what has been said, that's kind of what we go off of, and then we go from there.
Right.
I'm not going to say slander here. But the one thing that did get me thinking, and we can agree or disagree. I'm not saying either way, but this story, especially for how long it could be happening, and let me preface it by saying this: the things that happen in the Christian world are much they're much different or a lower level than the secular market. There's a standard for secular music, and then that drops down, right? We all sort of understood that. And then sometimes that Christian music is up to par, or sometimes even better in that realm. But we understand that concept, and that's what I'm going with here. So in this concept, with all the stories that we have in the news with other people, this is like the Christian world. I'm not saying he's comparable, because there's no, one, as of right now, there's no criminal charges. Not to say nothing that he's done is not criminal. I mean, illegal drugs, some of these things are criminal. The essay, criminal. But this is the Christian case of P. Diddy. I mean, I hate to say it that way. It's much a lesser version, but it's the thing that rocks this side of the world.
I think that's a stretch, though.
I'm not saying they're equivalent, but what I'm saying is that in this side of the world, it's the thing that rocks the boat. This has completely rocked the boat, rocked the case. It's being pulled off a radio. Look at his music's being pulled off a radio, being talked about, removed from Spotify. There's all these different things. The R. Kelly stuff, removing the catalog. This is a lesser version of it, but name another one that would have been as big of a story over any time in the Christian world that has this multitude of allegations, especially with the essay and the drug. We've seen the drug, we've seen cheating, we've seen some things of this nature, we've seen lifestyle choices, but nothing to this magnitude that rocks us, especially in the world that we're seeing, with the P. Diddy cases. I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying he's doing freak offs. I'm not saying any of that stuff. It's just not a good look. This is what I'm saying. And there's some equivalence. No slander meant by any of that. I was just drawing an aspect. Discuss. I don't know what Elijah did. He did not want to be seen when I said that. So
he said he's out.
Yeah.
Where did he go?
Maybe to the bathroom.
Went to Tinkle.
So where do we go from here, guys?
Yeah.
I mean, I think. I'd love to get Elijah in for this last part. And I think that's we'll cover two different things, one related, one unrelated. So we'll wait for Elijah. So, all right, let's cover the first one while he's gone. So if you guys haven't been with us for a long time, there he is. All right. So if you haven't been with us for a long time, we're normally a 5-man show. And so, so for some of our regulars, so some of our new people in there, thank you guys so much for joining us. If this is your first time watching us, we appreciate you guys. Most of you guys have stayed on the whole time. Chat's been great. You guys have been kind to one another. Some people agree with each other. Some people disagree. That's great. We love that. You guys aren't beating us up too badly. We appreciate that. So thank you so much for everybody who's joined us tonight. We used to do this show pretty regular back in the day. We're a five-man piece. So one of our main guys, Robbie, he's not with us tonight. We don't know a timeline. I know you're watching, so we missed you tonight, Robbie. Everybody go say hi to Robbie.
Missed you, Robbie.
Yeah, and if you're in the chat, you know who Robbie is. Go ahead and tell him that you missed Robbie tonight.
Robbie, I missed you tonight, man. You would have been great for an add-on in this talking. We had a great talk this afternoon, but we miss you.
Yeah, we miss you. Johnny gets to see him more often because he's in Canada. So for those of that are wondering, it's okay. Oh, he was in the chat at the beginning. For those of you who are wondering, hey, Robbie's made some choices that he's walked away from some stuff. That's an elephant in the room. I'm going to be talking about that. That's my plug for the other show that we're going to do right here on Taking the World TV, Flat Out Insights with Michael Summon. We will cover that. I got some statements from him. Here's the deal. Me and Robbie are still real close. We're still good friends. Yeah, you know what? I may be still a little bit different than Robbie. Those of you who know, that's okay. We don't have to beat him up. He's not a shill. He's not a fake. He's still part of the Sound Off family. So he's going to be right here. He didn't get paid off. So he's not like Rich living in the, the where would he be even living? I don't know. Bermuda or something like that. He's not.
Sure.
He's same old. He's the same old Robbie, just with some different views on some things that stirred a lot of people's anger towards him. So you know what? Just like Tait, Robbie can be forgiven too, even though he doesn't need anything to be forgiven for. Just changes of the opinion. So just wanted to get that out of the way. Robbie isn't going anywhere. We may bring on some guests too coming up real soon. I have another friend, Rob, and if you do watch this, Rob, we've been trying to get Rob. Rob was one of the original crew. We had originally started off with 7. He may make an appearance coming back in, and he was with a band called Building 429. And so he's got a lot of fun stories, a lot of things that he'd like to share. And I wouldn't be remiss to say this all comes back to, I think, the most important part of the show, which is ministry over industry. Doug's been on both sides of all of this, and I know we all have different opinions on this, but I think we're all going to probably agree at the end of the day. How we move forward is we turn back to Christ in these music industries and return them as close, to be honest with you, as close to looking like a Rich Mullins, Keith Green type of aspect, because that
even those guys had some skeletons, but they made it known.
They made it known. They made those things known, and even through those things, their ministry still shined in who they were. So let's wrap up. We've got 18 minutes, and so let's go. Let's start with Doug. Then we'll go to Elijah, then Johnny, and then or you know what? I'll go. Then Johnny can wrap up the show tonight.
So
ministry. So talk about how we get back ministry over industry, what that looks like, how the industry should get there, how that should be for our lives in the era. Whatever you want to do, this is our final thoughts.
All right. So I'm going to say that there's a subset of Christian artists that are ministry focused. I bring it up all the time on our shows when it's, we're talking about the heavier music like Face Down Records. I mean, there's bands like Bloodlines, Holy Name, Sleeping Giant, all these bands that are ministry-minded artists that are a lot bigger in the mainstream world to the mainstream metal kids that are open to hearing it. And it's still the Christian industry that is kind of keeping them at bay. However, the only way we're going to get back to that is if we the industry needs to repent, for one. The industry has used and abused Christians for a long time and lied to them. There's been a lot of trust broken throughout the Christian music industry, but it's like that within the church as well. I mean, I can speak to church hurt. I've got a ton of it. I think that the only way that we get back to anything that is meaningful is falling on our knees and falling on our face and repenting. I just this has kind of shaken me, even though I knew it was coming, to a place that I can't even express, because it's, I know people that were so affected by these artists, and I've tried in my life never to look at man. I've always tried to just have my face on God. And I think that's what we need to get back to, is having our face towards God and not looking at Toby Mac, Michael Tait, any of these guys. They're humans. They're sinful. They make choices. We make choices. But it's what we do at the end of the day with praying and seeking God. I won't say my job is harder than anybody else's, but the crap that I see and the crap that I hear on a daily basis, there's days where I just don't even want to talk to people, but yet I have to pray and seek out God because he put me in this position. These guys have been put in these positions. No matter what you want to say, if you're a plumber, you're a cop, you're a teacher, you've been placed and put on in a mantle of being the only Christ some people see. And I don't see any other way than just the Holy Spirit just ushering in and people actually falling on their face in repentance towards God.
I think that this is my personal feelings on it, but just I think that God is doing a lot of purging within Christianity right now. I think that you look at things not only with what's going on with Michael Tait, because I think it's like Doug said earlier. I think that as time goes on here, this could end up being even a bigger impact on the music industry than we even realize at the moment while we're speaking here. But you look at other things, some of these big pastors and with Hillsong and the whole thing with Daystar. Even you look at with TD Jakes getting wrapped up with all the P Diddy stuff, right? Like, and there's a bunch of other things I'm forgetting, but there's I think that there's God is moving and doing some things right now within Christianity and really uprooting some of the hypocrisy. And so I think bringing some of these things to light, certain sins to light that have been hidden and stuff, right? And I think we're going to continue to see some of that. I think that as you're seeing some of these play out, I think you're just going to see more of it. So I think that we should expect to see more of it. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, great points, guys. A lot of those things we all agree on, so I can continue to say the same things. When we fall so far from God's word to bring in our emotions, how we feel, modern politics, all these things cloud and muddy the waters. I mean, that's why you find guys like Bryson Gray. We've talked a lot about him on the shows before. Bryson Gray and some of these guys that are the chart-topping hip hop artists, like on all the streaming platforms, but churches won't bring him in because he's too controversial, because he rocks that boat, which is that emotional paradigm of what feels good, or we don't want to say this. And you got artists like Plum, who become extremely overtly apologetic for the flip side of far leftism within the Christian world. and everything is good, it's kosher. So we got these weird dynamics, and where you have, and I'm not saying that the industry totally supports that as well, because she's not headlining shows, she's not doing this. Yeah, she gets different types of shows, still Christian, still these things, but very on one side. Then you have far, hey, this is what the word says, I'm going to speak this truth and not be afraid of that. I think when we allow the scriptures to speak for itself again, and we don't get wrapped up in not offending people. I mean, the Christian music industry, what Johnny has to do every day, he has to go in, play songs that don't offend. If they offend, either way, they can't offend on the far left side, and they can't offend on the far, hey, this is what the word says, this is what we need to do. It puts put the industry right in the middle grounds. Ironically, that's where all the churches are, right? Seeker-friendly churches, everything gets pushed to this middle grounds where there's no stance on anything. And so when there's no stance, it all falls, it all fails, because it's all sand. It's all one is the grass with all the weeds in it, and the other one's the sand. Nothing is built on stone, and that is where we're at today with the industry, because it's a industry. It is strictly an industry, and I'm speaking about the church. Everybody who's in church, you can listen to guys like Francis Chan, why they left big major churches, because they're spiritually dead at the end of the day. They're not doing anything other than, I mean, you think of most of these churches, they run as organizations, and they got everybody, the pastor's got to do this job, that job, this, they got to go pay these bills over here, they got to go do this, they got to keep the collection plate coming in, so they can't rock the boat too much over here, so they stay right in this middle grounds and not offend. And that is just the nature of organized faith. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but it is the truth. But if we want to get back to getting back to ministry is going to look unapologetic. It's not going to be this far rightism that is so far off the deep end, that has no love for one another. And then it's not going to be to this other far left where it's going to do that. It's not even a happy medium in there. It's what the word says. It's where the word teaches us to be. It isn't a middle ground. It's not a paradigm shift of either side. It's what the word says. And that's not for us to debate. And that's where we end up, I think, as a body of believers, we end up getting to this point, not trusting in the word, but trusting in what our denomination says, where's the safe zone. And this is where we want to be. This is where we want to be at. And it worked for Christ. It worked for the disciples, and they brought people into the saving grace through the truth of the word, through who they were, through the actions, through these things. And it's not always perfect. A lot of people brought up a lot of great points. David was not a perfect man. All throughout the scriptures, all of these things, Samson, right? All of these great men of faith throughout the scriptures were so far from some perfect. As we mentioned, some of these people have admitted their faults in that. I mean, one of our good friends, Alan Aguirre, went on CCM magazine, the lead singer of Scattered Few. He goes in there and says, I'm struggling with marijuana. I'm trying to cut this out of my life. What happens from that? Ostracized from that, because he comes out and says it. When he's like, guess what? Everybody's doing it. I'm the only one that has the guts to do an interview and say, I know this is wrong. I need to leave this. That's walking not in a safe zone. That's not walking on two paradigm shifts. That's walking in accordance to the Spirit and the Word. That's what he did. And he got ostracized for it. We're not going to be perfect. The founding people of faith weren't perfect, but guess what? They weren't. When it came down to their unapologetic defense of the word, they were. David wrote these beautiful psalms, especially Psalms 119, about how he loved to be walking in God's laws and in his ways through obedience, even though he failed them. So I think if that is how we fix our lives, that's how we fix churches, that's how we fix Christian industries, whether it's music, whether it's your business, your practices. If we're walking in the word and the word is dictating our actions, we're not going to be hypocrites. And when we make mistakes, we're going to be able to own up to our mistakes. We're going to be able to own those right away. And we're going to be able to repair those relationships before everybody calls us a hypocrite and a fraud. And when we don't make those mistakes, we get blessings in that we don't seek those blessings. We seek the kingdom first through and walking in his obedience. And all these things will be added upon us through those things. And when we fall, we do have grace. So I say all that to now give it to Johnny. You've got the final 5-minute wrap up to this whole show. And 5 minutes.
Why are you doing that to me? It was actually interesting that you brought it up because I had a conversation via text with somebody today. I was actually just going back to some of the things that were mentioned back and forth. And I did say it's ironic. What if I stumble? What if I fall? What if I lose my step and I make fools of us all? But in the conversation that I had today, I had said that ministry is not about how loud your name echoes the culture. It's about how faithfully your heart echoes his name in the quiet. And the industry teaches us to build platforms, but true ministry begins when we build altars, places where we surrender our gifts back to the giver. And God is not looking for the performers, he's looking for the worshipers. And I think a lot of times we get convoluted in music and industry and money and fame. And I mean, ultimately, we're all sinners. We are all people who struggle with insert whatever that struggle is. And with that said, I said this to a buddy of mine. He goes, yeah, we're all sinners. I'm like, yeah, but we all don't go and sexually assault people either. And so I truly think about the victims. I think about the people who have had to deal with this. And as it's been said, there's more to come. And I'm worried in the sense that what will that look like? What stories are we going to hear? If you think that it can't get worse, I feel like it will. But I mean, ultimately, it's just it's a sad time. And I know that there's always different stories and different things that are coming out from people that we look up to or people that you put up on some sort of pedestal. But everyone that we look up to, that pedestal comes crashing down real hard.
Wow.
You still got 2 minutes, Johnny.
That's all I got.
Okay, so then since we've got 2 minutes, if anybody in the chat room wants to ask a question to the panel, not myself, Doug, Elijah, or Johnny, go ahead and throw that in there right now. And we're gonna if nobody has a question, we'll end the show. But I want to give you guys a huge thank you for being in there. The chat was great. Karen, you've done great with moderating. Didn't need to do much. Everybody that's new, thank you so much. Guys, a lot of times, if there's no questions come through, I'm just going to tell you, we do talk about the good things. We have debates on artists. We sometimes go into totally different realms on Sound Off, maybe dealing with Christian music sometimes, and sometimes not. So I would hope to have you guys back. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You guys stayed here, listened to us ramble for 2 hours. So, which is me, and these guys do much better. So, if there's anybody else out there that has any questions or anything, we truly appreciate it. If not, Johnny, would you send us off to
eat a churro? Oh, I love you guys.
Churro. Well, yeah, there it is. This is for Elijah, for Johnny, for Doug, and Chris, and for Robbie, who's watching afar, who will come back one day. Um,
In
we will
another
see
year?
you guys soon.
No,
In
Like
another
an
year.
year.
no.
No, it won't be another. We're coming back soon, guys. We're gonna be dedicated this summer, which will lead us into the school year, and so we have to do this more often. So back to almost regular
Yes.
would be nice, right?
Why don't we do it from? I'll come out live at audio feed since Jeremiah Dirt and I will be there.
Well, I think when Dirt comes, we get Dirt on a show and just go
Okay.
live with Dirt. Let's do that. Let's do that and just chill. I mean, me, I'm gonna hang with Dirt too, so I'm gonna get to meet him and hopefully his
Bride to be.
his bride to be. So we got some exciting news there. So, there was the question: has Toby or Kevin made a statement? I don't believe so. So there was that question for us. I don't believe
I've
so.
heard.
But then again, yeah, nobody's heard anything. So I am new to this. This is our brand new system here. So, guys, thank you guys for being with us. Sound off. Take on the World TV. Like and subscribe. We'll see you
Thank
guys,
you, guys.
really soon.
Thanks, guys. Love you.
Sound off.